And just like that, 82 games of the regular season have now been played. Guys, I can't wait to dive into it. You're watching Raptors Today. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Paul Jones, Sherman Hamilton, Amy Audibert will be joining us a little bit later now. Did this season fly by or what? It feels like it was just October yesterday.
One day you'll be a mother and you'll learn.
Well, that's going to be a long time from now.
The days seem long, but the years are short.
Oh,
it's like having kids.
Someday I'll figure that one out. Someday I'll figure that one out. But we have to break down what we saw this past year, of course. You know, Scottie Barnes, I remember him on draft day just being so excited to hear his name called, he's coming to Toronto, the big smile on his face, coming through the city, having with Delano, learning the culture a little bit more. And then you see him in Summer League and he's playing very well. He's already standing out there, but then preseason started to dominate. And he had glimpses of just incredible moments that we then saw throughout the season. So Jonesy, going to you first on this, what stands out to you about Scottie's rookie campaign this year?
Well, I think the development that we've seen and, developing in a winning system. We've talked about how the Raptors have really mastered that, winning and developing. We saw Scottie improve and, to the people that looked at that pick and thought it might not have been the popular pick because other people had other ideas. But when Masai, Bobby, Dan, the team that's in charge in Toronto finds guys like Pascal at 27, an undrafted Fred VanVleet, Norman Powell in a trade in the second round. I think you need to step back and for the majority trust their judgment. You look at Scottie Barnes and what he's done as a rookie, particularly since the All-Star break. We talk about those different levels of play, Summer League, preseason, regular season, post-All-Star, and now he's going to get a taste of playoffs. He's had the third most touches, passage, and a high usage rate since the All-Star break for Toronto. He's the only rookie since Magic Johnson in 1980 to have played all 5 positions over the course of the year. You look at the 3 things, the availability, 73 games, the durability, and the versatility in his game. 15.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, 3.4 assists. No rookies put up those numbers since Luka Doncic. So Scottie has just shown a continual, constant progression and improvement going forward. None of that matters now, though, because we're hit playoff time, and it's time for money. So now he's going to get another lesson, and we'll watch how he does.
I think he's going to step up pretty well, but we got to talk about somebody who stepped up a lot this season, coming off of the bubble, which was a little rocky, coming off of Tampa, which was very rocky at times. Pascal Siakam, he had shoulder surgery coming into the season, missed some time, but he really turned his game around. I remember the hateful comments coming out of Tampa, coming out of the bubble with his performance, and now he's having what is we're all calling an all-NBA season, and he arguably should have definitely been that all-star, Sherm.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And to your comment about what was said about Pascal over the last couple seasons, there were some disgusting things said about Pascal, really crossing the line. I will say this, Pascal has handled all of that like a champ. He's done a good job in terms of understanding what he needs to do. And I credit the organization as well for making sure they allow Pascal to be who he is. But he's done a great job, and we can talk about on-the-court stuff because his numbers are great this year. I mean, if you want to talk statistically, he's up in rebounding. His assist total is up. He's not scoring as much. It's a hair below what he scored in his All-NBA season. But overall, his game is so much better. So you're looking at a guy who has now understood what it takes skill-wise to get better. And I look at a category of assists and I say, what do guys do in the offseason? They work on their handle. They get stronger. They work on their shot. They do things off the dribble. They expand their game from the neck down. Pascal expanded his game from the neck up. Being able to recognize what's happening with the other 9 players on the floor, know the spacing, understand when you attract the second guy, not that you see the next pass, but how do you execute that pass and make the right decision? Pascal has taken huge steps in those areas. And now you're talking about a guy who is seeing the play 1 or 2 plays before it happens. We hear great players in the past talk about it, the game slows down. They get to see things developing and they can understand how to execute. Pascal took that step this year. So, with everything that he's gone through, he only played 68 games this season, but he hit the ground running when he came back from surgery, and he's been on a tear since. And I think a little motivation not making the All-Star game might have helped him out, but Pascal was great this season, and I think going into the playoffs, he understands that there's another challenge.
Yep.
Can he get it done under the bright lights of the playoffs? And Pascal, to me, has played this season in a way that indicates that he's going to take that step.
Taking this motivated Pascal Siakam to the playoffs. Cannot wait to see what's going to come about. But we're going to hear from now assistant coach Adrian Griffin from the Toronto Raptors.
Well, I think just all the adversity that we've gone through from the beginning of the season. The last couple of years we've dealt with, COVID probably more than any other team. We've dealt with injuries, probably more than any other team, and we still, just the tenacity and the fortitude to keep fighting. And I think Coach Nurse has done a tremendous job. I'm not just saying that because I work for him, but every year in my eyes, he should be up there with Coach of the Year, and just has done a phenomenal job with our team and just bringing us together. And he gets the most out of his teams, and I think that's the quality of a great coach. Is just the management does a great job of giving us pieces, but the head coach has to maximize those pieces. And I think Coach Nurse does that better than anyone I've been around. Number one, the vision always comes from, Coach Nurse, who's a great visionary in my opinion. And, how can you get more possessions, offensive glass, and on defensive end, forcing turnovers, rebounding and limit them to one shot. So you try to control what you can control, and this team has responded very well. I believe we've been first or second in offensive rebounding the whole season. Defensively, we could put, guys that are 6'7" out there at one time and switch 1 through 5. So we have a great versatility, and they've been great as far as adapting. A lot of times we switch our defenses quite a bit during the course of a game, either from zone to man and certain other coverages and box and ones. And then, we throw the kitchen sink at these guys at times, and they respond. So they've been really, really fun to coach, very coachable, great attitudes, and just looking to get all our guys back and just ramp up for this postseason run. I think just the consistency of just the preparation, I think that's one thing is the strength of Coach Nurse, is just preparing the team. Our shoot-arounds, from our practices, and then obviously in the game, he just knows how to put the players in the best position to succeed on the offensive end. And then he just demands, attention to detail and playing hard on the defensive end. I've never really seen him take a player out because they miss shots. But defensively, you have to be locked in. You have to have a sense of urgency and know what we're doing on the defensive end. And on the offensive end, he gives those guys freedom, and I think they just enjoy playing for him. If there's a good shot, you never hear a word from a Coach Nurse on that end of the floor. But, there's standards that we have, and he demands high standards, but the players are capable of reaching those standards, and I feel like they really enjoy playing for Coach Nurse. The challenge is probably more on the offensive end at times, to just getting those guys acclimated to playing with each other. Sometimes we'll have, Chris, Precious, and Kim out there on the floor, and, they have to just get used to just playing in different positions and working with each other and building the chemistry. But that's nothing different from any other team. You got to get guys acclimated to playing together. And then on the defensive end, it's been great because it gives us a lot of versatility. We'll switch 1 through 5. We got Precious, who can guard 1s and 2s and moves his feet better than anyone. And often we put him on the best player on the opposing team. So it gives us a lot of options out on the defensive end. But I think just on the offensive end, we just got continue to get them working together and knowing each other's strengths so they can complement each other on the floor.
Now we got to talk about a leader that left the Toronto Raptors organization relatively in the beginning of the season, and then also a new one that stepped up as well. Of course, Kyle Lowry left, Fred VanVleet took his spot. And I remember talking to Fred VanVleet earlier this season and saying that it's a big role to fill. You know, Kyle Lowry left a significant impact on the Toronto Raptors franchise. So, you know, Jonesy, when you think about, you know, just that impact and just how much Fred VanVleet had to step up into a leadership role, what stands out to you?
Well, first of all, the lessons he learned from Kyle Lowry. He has really become, you know, with no disrespect intended to Fred, he's become like a mini Kyle. And leadership has many forms. It's making big plays on the court. It's making winning plays at the right time. We see that from Fred. I mean, you look at some of the numbers, his three-point shooting. If your name is not Steph Curry, you're behind Fred VanVleet when it comes to three-point makes on average over the course of a game. So it's making big plays on the court defensively. Steals, assists, scoring, all of those things. But leadership also has a qualitative component as well. And Fred always has the team in a we're okay type of attitude. Regardless of what's happening, regardless of how maybe he feels inside, he projects this calm exterior and everybody feeds off that. And when you look at it, Kyle Lowry did the same thing. We're never out of it. We're always in it. We're going to play hard. We're not going to give up. All of those things Kyle gave to Fred. He actually calls him his little brother here in Toronto. And Fred's taken them forward as a leader in Toronto this year. And the Raptors haven't missed a beat.
No, they have not. And another player that we actually acquired in the Tampa season was Gary Trent Jr. And I think a lot of Raptors fans expected him to be a scorer. I think that was what's the selling point with Gary Trent Jr., of course. But this season, he's a leader on the defensive end as well, Sherm. You know, he's one of the leaders in steals, but then also deflections as well. So when you think about Gary Trent Jr., how happy are you to see that element of his game also get developed?
Well, I think it's great to see when you talk about a guy in the perimeter who can really create havoc for ball handlers. Mm-hmm. But to your point about him being a scorer, listen, when you're playing beside C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard, you're going to have to find ways to stay on the court, which isn't putting the ball in the basket, because those two guys are going to do that consistently at a high clip. So Gary Trent Jr. was able to stay on the floor because he can make shots, but also he had to play defense in Portland. He had to be that guy. So coming to Toronto, he's got a chance to open up his offensive game, bring that defensive identity that he built in Portland, trying to stay on the floor with some explosive offensive guards. And now you put it together and you have a guy who's had 13 30-plus point games in his career, 12 of them come in a Raptor uniform. That's because he's building the defense, he's playing offense, and he's getting minutes, he's getting opportunities. And sometimes Nick Nurse does a great job of featuring him. And when he gets going, they continue to feed him. But the added defensive energy that he brings, the ability to make it miserable for ball handlers and to create a lot of tempo with his defense by creating turnovers and deflections, it's something that has really bolstered the Raptors in terms of their ability to create offense off their defense. A lot of teams want to score in the front court, want to score in terms of playing their 5-on-5. The Raptors score in transition. Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet from his defensive position, they do a great job of creating offense off their defense. And to me, that's created an identity for the Raptors. They're one of the best teams in scoring points off turnovers because of a guy like Gary Trent Jr.
The best offense is a great defense. And that's exactly what you said, the transition points. It's not just always, taking the risky superhero plays, the three-point shots. Yeah, it's great when you have a night when you're scoring 40 or 30, but, it's all those small plays, the key plays on the defensive end that could get your teammates open and in a result, you as well open. Yeah. That gives you a better look at the rim. But now we're going to hear from the team themselves.
I mean, I really thought we were good from the beginning of the year. Even though we lost a lot of games and stuff, I think that it was just a learning curve for us. Obviously, we had a lot of guys that are playing different position, and it takes some time for people to understand the Raptors' defense schemes and all that. And Nick Nurse liked to switch a lot of stuff. So, I mean, I think we needed a couple of games to get through that. But I felt like during practice and all, we saw all the talent, different position, different guys was just showing what they were capable of doing. So, we got the chance to do it against other people, and it really paid off. I think it's a good matchup for us. I think we didn't really focus on who we were playing. I think we played every team 2-3 times already, and we were gonna find something to do against every team. So honestly, I'm just happy to be in a playoff. Last year we didn't get the chance to do that, so whoever we were playing, I was just happy that we made it there, especially the way we started the year.
Playoffs we obviously weren't there last year, so that's that's what you want to play for as a player. So being a part of that, it's definitely going to be a new experience and something that I'm gonna enjoy. They just see things differently, and it's been working for us. And I think for us, we just all bought in like early and starting in training camp, sending 3 to the board, like you said, just doing a lot of different things on defense. And it's been working for us, so we've been rocking with it. Like I said before, playoffs is what you want to play in. At the end of the day, the regular season don't matter. It's about what you do in playoffs. So I think all of us are looking forward to it.
We're now going to head over to Amy Audibert.
Sav, thank you so much. It was really tough to pick only 3 top moments from this season for the Raptors, but let's go with the most recent one, and it was Pascal Siakam's triple-double in a 5-point win over Philadelphia. It was just last week, so it's probably a little bit fresh in my mind, but he had 37 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists in a completely dominating fashion against a pretty fully loaded 76ers squad. So not only did this send the message of a potential matchup that now we're seeing come into fruition, Pascal, he's just been so resilient this entire season, continuing to fight. Toronto fell back a little bit early in that game, but then went on to win the final 3 quarters. And it was through Pascal and the way he played and his ability to impose his will on the court. I hope we see a little bit more of that starting this weekend. Number 2, let's take it back to January 29th when the Raptors visited Miami down in sunny South Florida and won a game in triple overtime. This was one of the most intense battles I can remember in a long time. It was a completely physical game. I mean, these guys were banging the entire time. Nobody wanted to give up that game. And my gosh, for the Raptors, 5 guys, 50-plus minutes. It was the first time that's happened in an NBA game. And Scotty had 22 and 9, OG 20-14, Pascal had 21 and 13. Gary Trent led the way with 33 points. How about Fred, 19 points and 8 assists? This was I want to say fun, but also at times anxious game to watch. But I think this gave confidence, not just to Raptors, but to everybody up north. They can hang with anybody if they play that tough. And for the final moment, just 5 days after that, my big win in Miami, Fred VanVleet getting named an NBA All-Star officially for the first time in his career. And what a night this was, not just for him, but for the entire organization to celebrate him. Of course, they won again in overtime against a tough Chicago Bulls team. DeMar DeRozan in the house, who was a vet when Fred came in as a rookie for the Raptors. So there was definitely some sentimental moments in this game, but it all boils down to the example that Fred VanVleet has continued to set for all of us. Undrafted to an NBA All-Star. This is a guy that has outwilled and outworked almost everybody in the gym. And what a moment for him to be officially rewarded for that through an NBA All-Star tag. That will last forever.
Now, Jonesy, we have to talk about the Raptors bench, in particular Chris Boucher and Precious Achiuwa, because we've seen so much growth from those players over the course of the season. A little bit of a rocky start in the beginning of the season, but they really turned it around.
The bench was much maligned when the season started because people were worried about, you know, how much time are you going to ride the starters? How much are they going to have to play? And those 2 guys in particular, Savanna, showed tremendous growth, as you said. And from 2 different positions, Chris went back to what made him successful. He had some success last year in Tampa, staying on the floor, not only with his energy, his defense, but with his scoring. And I think he trended toward that at the start of the year and then realized when that wasn't working, wait a minute, I better back up. And he's told us this, strip it down, go back to what made me successful, play with energy, run the floor, challenge shots, block shots, and that other stuff will come. And we saw that. And as for Precious, that situation was new for him. Not that coming off the bench was new, but coming off the bench with this freedom in terms of what he was allowed to do. He wasn't put in kind of a strict lane the way he was in Miami. The Raptors were giving him freedom, and we saw him grow into that freedom. And again, over the course of the year, not make decisions that he made at the beginning of the year that might have been questionable. Much more sound in his decision making, which allowed his ability, his tremendous ability to come forward. And those 2 guys have been huge going down the stretch. And you know what? They're going to be big come playoff time, too.
Well, the Raptors gave Precious the ability to find his own game on his terms in some senses.
Let him play through it.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of trust in a franchise and in a player. So it goes both ways that way. And you then, as a result, you get a player that is performing at his highest because he's confident. He found his game now. And then with Chris Boucher, on the other side of things, he was doing a little bit too much in the beginning. He stripped it back, went back to what made him successful originally. But then he started to add more elements of what he was doing in the beginning, but he tightened it up. So we still see him shooting the ball, but he's shooting it at a higher clip with better opportunities. Now, sure, one thing that's very apparent about this Raptors team, something that we really haven't seen done much at all within the league, has been positionless basketball, mainly 5 through 2 or 2 through 5, but regardless, they have so much switchability between OG, between Scotty, between Pascal. What do you make of this lineup? Do you think the Raptors are going to stick with this? And do you think other teams might follow this trend?
Well, I think it's a testament to this organization's vision of how they see the game being played. You think about the NBA, a lot of it is switching. Regardless of the size, they switch because you don't really play post basketball the way it used to be back in the day, and you're not necessarily having the 7-footer with size go down on a block and punish a guy who's 6'2". So the league switches. The Raptors looked at it and said, well, if we're going to switch everything, why don't we have the same body length, the same dimensions to switch 2 through 5, as you said, and sometimes when they go with the big lineup, it's 1 through 5 on the floor, and get the ranginess, the athleticism that you get at that 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" height, and get guys who can really create a lot of problems, whether it's on the perimeter or in the block. And then offensively, you have the same skill sets pretty much, guys who can operate on the offensive end from the three-point line, handling the basketball, passing the basketball, or even in the paint. And that, to me, has paid dividends in leaps and bounds for this team. When you think about the ability for the Raptors, from a defensive perspective, to not give anything up with their size, and then on the glass at the end of that possession, they're able to capitalize, and then turn around offensively and go to the other end of the floor and put a lot of pressure on opponents' glasses because they're able to get second chance opportunities. They're able to use their athleticism and length and get rebounds. So it's a vision that I think the league is going to copy because it is a copycat league to some extent. And we saw it a bit in the second last game of the regular season with Houston. They had a smaller version of it, maybe 6'6", 6'7",
Yep.
but they had lineups out there that had that general size. They're young, they don't get it yet, but you could see that kind of being developed in Houston. So the Raptors are usually ahead of things, and Nick Nurse is very creative and does a great job of implementing new things. But you can see that this vision for basketball really has a high ceiling when you talk about how they can play on both sides of the basketball, and they're so good at attracting the right pieces to put into the puzzle.
Do you remember when Golden State changed the league and having a shooting point guard?
Absolutely.
A point guard that could hit the 3 consistently?
He's pretty good, too.
He's not bad. He's all right. He's all right. You can watch Game 1 of the NBA playoffs with the Toronto Raptors versus the 76ers, 6 p.m. on Saturday. Now from myself, Savanna Hamilton, Paul Jones, Sherman Hamilton, Amy Audibert, Armando, Jake, and Garth, thank you for watching another episode of Raptors Today.